Climate. Why Ken's wrong. Climate science is another theme on which Ken Wheeler weighs in from time to time. Find out why his baseless climate denial is something about which we no longer have time to argue. Climate change is the term scientists use to describe long-term shifts in weather patterns and atmospheric temperatures. Historically, most of these shifts were natural, usually because of changes in the sun's natural cycles. That started to change in the early 19th century. With the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, humanity started burning coal. Before long, we discovered what seemed like vast petroleum reserves and also found ways to use them to fuel our vehicles. Natural gas soon followed as an economical way to generate electricity and heat our buildings. We've started calling these energy sources fossil fuels. This is partly because they're the remains of ancient life forms, and partly because humanity needs to move away from them for ecological and economic reasons. When we burn fossil fuels, we emit gases that trap heat in Earth's atmosphere, especially carbon dioxide and methane. This raises the average surface temperature across the globe. This is already causing severe droughts, water shortages, wildfires, rising sea levels, catastrophic floods, melting polar ice caps, disastrous storms, and mass extinction. If it continues unabated, the climate crisis will cause massive human health risks, forced displacements, widespread famines, and even more severe pandemics. At this point, all reputable climate scientists agree with these conclusions. For decades, the expert consensus has been that climate change is a crisis caused by human activity. For example, the World Meteorological Society reports that while greenhouse gas emissions continue to rise and the climate continues to change, populations worldwide continue to be gravely impacted by extreme weather and climate events. Similarly, the world's leading scientific authority on climate change, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, tells us that human activities, principally through emissions of greenhouse gases, have unequivocally caused global warming, with global surface temperature reaching 1.1 degrees Celsius above 1850 to 1900 in 2011 to 2020. Global greenhouse gas emissions have continued to increase, with unequal historical and ongoing contributions arising from unsustainable energy use, land use and land use change, lifestyles and patterns of consumption, and production across regions, between and within countries, and among individuals. Ken Wheeler denies these established scientific facts as part of a global conspiracy. While dismissing objective evidence from climate scientists, he offers his own demonstrably false notions about rising CO2 levels and climate change. The angry photographer assures his audiences that Mother Nature loves CO2. Harkening back to his grade 6 science lessons, he reminds us that plants absorb carbon dioxide through photosynthesis. As any gardener or farmer will tell you, CO2 is the least of their worries in getting plants to grow. Light, temperature, and moisture are vastly more important to keeping plants healthy than how much carbon dioxide there is in the air. Rising temperatures aren't good for plants. Droughts and fires wipe out massive ranges of plant life, and floods cause widespread erosion, which uproots and devastates plant life in a wide range of ecosystems. Ken Wheeler also raises the point that Earth's CO2 levels were higher during the Jurassic period than they are today. He goes on to say that temperatures rose along with the elevated CO2 levels in the distant past. The connection between temperatures and CO2 levels shows that they're tightly correlated. In fact, science tells us that climate and CO2 levels have always varied together as if in lockstep. They're both lower during ice ages and they're both higher during warm periods. The YouTuber behind Theoria Apophasis also tells us that the entire planet was lush and super green in prehistoric periods of high atmospheric CO2. This balance came from extremely gradual adjustment periods that took place over millions of years. On the other hand, when greenhouse gas levels have risen suddenly, they've always caused mass extinctions. We've increased our artificial CO2 emissions at an unprecedented rate. As a result, the last decade was the hottest on record. These rapid changes correlate with rising temperatures, rising sea levels, and ocean acidification, just as they always have when CO2 levels have spiked in the remote past. Ironically, this climactic change has affected Ken Wheeler personally. Hurricane Ian caused extensive damage to his vacation home in Fort Myers, Florida. Yet he persists in denying that the climate crisis is real and caused by human activity. Ken Wheeler has no formal training, credentials, or experience related to climate science, and it shows. It's hard to be certain why Ken Wheeler feels the need to deny this universal scientific consensus. He constantly complains about the price of everything, especially gasoline, so carbon pricing may have something to do with it. The angry photographer also displays a hostile resentment towards anyone with a formal education, especially scientists with PhDs. He's also intensely antagonistic toward peer-reviewed scientific literature, viewing modern science as a vast, insular, self-serving conspiracy. Kentucky Ken's profound gullibility toward fake experts may also be a factor. Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell represents his state in the U.S. Senate. A key coal mining jurisdiction, Kentucky is one of only 4 U.S. states where most residents don't believe human activity causes climate change. He may simply be a product of his environment. Whatever his reasons, humanity is well beyond the point where climate denial is credible or worth debating. We no longer have time for this nonsense. So it's important that we disregard Ken Wheeler's climate denial. Mother Nature's health and future, not to mention our own, depend on it.